What if the part of your yard you've been ignoring is actually the most valuable space you own? That dark, damp, useless corner where nothing seems to grow, where grass dies, vegetables struggle, and most people just give up on entirely. Yeah, that spot. Because here's the mistake almost every gardener makes. They think no sun means no harvest, no light, no food, no point trying. But that assumption is completely wrong. In fact, some of the most expensive, most nutrient-dense, and most sought-after crops on Earth don't just tolerate shade, they prefer it. Some even require it to survive. And the wild part? A few of these crops sell for prices that will genuinely surprise you. One goes for over $100 a pound. Another has been used in traditional medicine for over 5,000 years. And one of them is a fruit tree that thrives in shade, tastes like a tropical dessert, and grows in climates most people would never expect. So instead of fighting the shade in your yard, what if you used it to your advantage? By the end of this video, you'll know 12 crops that turn shade from a limitation into one of the most powerful growing conditions you have. And trust me, some of these are not what you think. Let's start with the one that usually makes people stop in their tracks. Number 1. Ramps. And this is where most people start to realize they've been overlooking something big. Ramps, also known as wild leeks, don't look like much at first. Just a few smooth green leaves, almost identical to lily of the valley, with a faint garlic onion smell when you crush them. Nothing about them screams valuable. But here's the part that changes everything. At high-end farmers markets and top-tier restaurants across North America, ramps regularly sell for $20 to $30 a bunch, sometimes even more. And chefs, they treat ramp season like an event. For a few short weeks each spring, menus suddenly fill up with ramp dishes, ramp butter, ramp pasta, ramp oil, because the supply is limited and the demand is intense. Foragers who know where they grow often guard their patches like secrets. So why are they so rare? Because ramps don't grow where most people are planting. They're woodland plants. In the wild, they thrive on the shaded forest floor, under tall hardwood trees like oaks, maples, and birches, where sunlight is filtered, the soil stays cool, and moisture is constant. Put them in full sun, and they struggle. Put them in shade, and suddenly, they're exactly where they want to be. Now here's the catch, and this is where most people give up too early. Ramps are slow. If you grow them from seed, it can take 5 to 7 years before you get a truly productive patch. And that's why they're so expensive. But here's the shortcut almost nobody talks about. You don't have to start from seed. You can plant bulbs or transplants and cut that time nearly in half. Once they're established, something interesting happens. You stop working, and they keep producing. They're perennial. They come back every single year, and over time they slowly spread on their own, turning a small patch into a reliable harvest. But there's one rule you absolutely have to follow if you want them to last. Never harvest aggressively. Take no more than 1 leaf per plant, and never more than 1/3 of your patch in a single season. Because if you respect that balance, you're not just growing a crop, you're building something that can feed you every spring for decades. And here's one more detail most people never hear. Ramps aren't some trendy modern superfood. They've been used for thousands of years. Indigenous communities across eastern North America relied on them as one of the first fresh foods after winter, long before grocery stores, long before farming as we know it today. So when you plant ramps in the shade, you're not forcing something to grow where it shouldn't. You're recreating the exact environment they evolved in. And that idea, working with the conditions you already have instead of fighting them, is what makes everything else on this list work. Number 2, ginger. This is one of those crops you've probably bought dozens of times without ever thinking twice about it. You walk into a grocery store, grab a piece, pay a few dollars, and that's it. But here's what most people don't realize. Ginger is actually a shade-loving plant. In the wild, it doesn't grow out in open fields under full sun. It grows underneath dense tropical canopies in Southeast Asia, where sunlight is filtered, humidity is high, and the soil stays consistently moist. In other words, it grows in conditions that look a lot like that problem shady spot in your yard. And here's where it gets interesting. If you plant ginger in full direct afternoon sun, it often struggles. The leaves scorch, growth slows down, and the underground rhizomes, the part you actually harvest, stay small. But move it into partial shade, warm temperatures, rich soil, steady moisture, and suddenly it takes off. Now here's the part that surprises almost everyone. You don't need seeds. You don't need anything fancy. You can literally start with ginger from the grocery store. Look for a piece with visible eyes, those small bumps on the surface. Soak it overnight, plant it about 2 inches deep in a shaded bed or even a container. Keep the soil moist, and within a few weeks, you'll start seeing green shoots pushing up through the soil. From there, it's mostly patience. Ginger takes about 8 to 10 months to fully mature, but you don't actually have to wait that long. There's something called green ginger. You can start harvesting small pieces as early as 4 months in. And here's the twist. That younger ginger, it's milder, juicier, less fibrous, and many chefs actually prefer it. Now beyond the flavor, there's another reason this plant stands out. Ginger isn't just food. It's one of the most studied medicinal plants in the world. There are thousands of scientific studies looking at its effects, from reducing inflammation to easing nausea to supporting the immune system. It contains hundreds of active compounds, and when you grow it yourself, you're harvesting it at peak freshness when those compounds are at their most potent. No shipping time, no sitting on store shelves, just fresh, living food, pulled straight from the soil in a part of your yard most people ignore. And once you see how well it grows in shade, it completely changes how you think about what that space is capable of producing. Number 3. Turmeric. At first glance, it looks almost identical to ginger. Same thick underground rhizomes, same lush green leaves above the soil, same preference for warm, humid, shaded environments. But in terms of value, turmeric quietly operates on a completely different level. Walk into any health food store and fresh turmeric already sells for a premium. But step back and look at the bigger picture. Turmeric isn't just a crop. It's an entire industry, a multi-billion-dollar global market built around one single compound, curcumin. And here's what makes that so interesting. Curcumin is one of the most researched natural compounds in existence. For over 5,000 years, turmeric has been used in Ayurvedic medicine, long before modern science ever studied it. And now, modern research is catching up, confirming what traditional systems already believed. Powerful anti-inflammatory effects, antioxidant properties, and potential benefits that go far beyond basic nutrition. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. Fresh turmeric is dramatically more potent than what you buy in powdered form. In fact, your body absorbs its beneficial compounds far more efficiently when it's fresh, straight from the root, compared to dried, processed supplements that have been sitting on shelves. That's not marketing, that's biochemistry. And suddenly, growing it yourself becomes a completely different conversation. Now, in terms of growing, this is where it gets easy. If you can grow ginger, you can grow turmeric. Same conditions, partial to full shade, warm temperatures, rich organic soil, consistent moisture. Plant the rhizomes in spring, let them grow through the warm season, and by fall, when the leaves begin to yellow and die back, you're ready to harvest. And just like ginger, you don't have to pull everything at once. You can harvest gradually, leaving some in the soil to continue growing. So, instead of buying small jars of powder, you're producing fresh, vibrant, intensely colored roots right in a part of your garden most people think is unusable. And once you understand that, Shade stops looking like a limitation. It starts looking like an opportunity to grow things most people only ever experience in processed form. Number 4, spinach. Now, let's talk about something almost everyone has tried to grow, and a lot of people accidentally fail at. Because spinach has a reputation for being easy, fast-growing, productive, beginner-friendly. And technically, that's true. But there's one mistake that quietly ruins most spinach crops before they ever get going. People plant it in full sun. It sounds logical, right? More sun equals more growth. Except for spinach, that logic backfires. Because spinach didn't evolve in hot, exposed fields. It comes from cooler, mountainous regions, places where temperatures stay mild and sunlight isn't constantly intense. So, when you put spinach in strong, direct sun, especially as temperatures start to rise, something very specific happens. The plant thinks it's about to die. Not literally, but biologically. It senses heat and intense light as a signal that the growing season is ending. And instead of continuing to produce leaves, the part you actually want, it rushes to reproduce. It bolts. Shoots up a tall flower stalk, turns bitter, and within days, your harvest is basically over. That's the moment most people get frustrated and think spinach just doesn't grow well. But the issue isn't the plant, it's the environment. Now, here's the simple shift that changes everything. Give it shade. Not deep, heavy darkness, but partial shade. Morning sun, then protection from the harsh afternoon heat. Or even better, plant it under a tree where light is naturally filtered. Suddenly, the temperature drops, the stress disappears, and the plant stays focused on what you actually want, leaf production. Instead of bolting in a few weeks, your harvest window stretches out for weeks or even months longer. And here's the advantage most people don't realize. While everyone else loses their spinach as soon as summer hits, yours keeps going. Same plant, same seeds, just a different placement. And on top of that, spinach is one of the most nutrient-dense foods you can grow. Per calorie, it's packed with iron, calcium, folate, and vitamins A and K, far more than most leafy greens. So, when you grow it successfully in shade, you're not just fixing a frustrating problem, you're turning one of the most common garden failures into one of the most reliable, high-yield crops in your entire yard. Number 5, mushrooms. Now, technically, this isn't even a plant. And that's exactly why it might be the most powerful thing on this list. Because while most people are trying to figure out what can grow in the shade, mushrooms don't just tolerate it, they require it. No direct sun, no exposed soil, no traditional garden beds, just shade, moisture, and the right material to grow on. And here's where things start to get really interesting. You don't grow mushrooms in dirt. You grow them in wood. Logs, sawdust, straw, wood chips. Instead of planting seeds, you inoculate these materials with something called spawn, and then you let nature take over. Keep it moist, keep it shaded, and over time, food starts appearing. Now let's talk about what that food is actually worth, because this is where most people completely underestimate mushrooms. Gourmet varieties like oyster mushrooms, shiitake, lion's mane, and wine caps regularly sell for $10 to $30 per pound, sometimes more depending on the market. And unlike most vegetables, you're not replanting every season. Take shiitake as an example. You drill small holes into a hardwood log, insert mushroom plugs, seal them with wax, and place the log in a shaded, humid area. Then you wait. Somewhere between 6 to 18 months later, it starts producing. And once it does, that single log can produce mushrooms every year for 4 to 6 years. Think about that for a second. One setup, years of harvest. Now scale that up to 10 logs in a shaded corner of your yard, and suddenly that useless space starts looking like a serious production system. But mushrooms aren't just valuable because of price. They're also at the center of some of the most exciting research happening right now. Take lion's mane, for example. Scientists are studying its potential to stimulate nerve growth factor, a protein linked to brain health and neurological repair. In other words, you're not just growing food, you're growing something that sits right at the intersection of nutrition, medicine, and cutting-edge science. And here's one more option that almost feels too easy. Wine cap mushrooms, sometimes called garden giants. You don't even need logs. You spread spawn over a bed of wood chips in a shaded area, keep it moist, and that's it. They grow, they spread, they improve your soil as they break down organic material. It's one of the closest things you'll find to a set-it-and-forget-it crop. Now, quick pause for a second. If you're starting to see your yard differently right now, you're not alone. And if you're getting value from this, there's a lot more coming. Because the next few crops on this list get even more unusual, and in some cases, almost completely forgotten. Let's keep going. Number 6. Miner's lettuce. This one comes with a story most people have never heard. Back during the California gold rush, miners were facing brutal conditions, cold weather, limited food, and one very real problem: scurvy, a lack of vitamin C that could weaken the body fast. And the solution? It wasn't shipped in, it wasn't processed, it was growing right around them: miner's lettuce. This small, almost strange-looking plant became one of their most important survival foods, fresh, nutrient-rich, and available in the exact kind of environments most crops struggle in: cool, moist, shaded. And if you've never seen it before, it doesn't look like anything you'd expect to eat. Round, almost perfectly circular leaves, with the stem growing straight through the center. It looks more like something decorative than edible. But that unusual appearance is exactly why today it shows up on high-end restaurant plates. Chefs love it, not just for the story, but for the flavor: light, crisp, slightly sweet, often compared to water chestnut. Now here's what makes it incredibly practical for a home garden. It grows fast, from seed to harvest in about 40 days. It thrives in shade and cooler temperatures, conditions that usually limit other crops. And once you plant it, you often don't have to plant it again. Miner's lettuce self-seeds aggressively, meaning it drops seeds, comes back on its own, and quietly turns into a recurring crop without much effort from you. No complicated setup, no constant maintenance, just a shaded patch and a plant that keeps returning. So instead of trying to force high-maintenance crops into difficult conditions, you're working with something that already knows how to thrive there. And for anyone selling at a farmer's market, this is the kind of crop that makes people stop and ask questions. It looks different, it has a story, and it sells itself. And that combination, unusual, useful, and easy to grow, is exactly what makes shade such an underrated advantage. Number 7. Sorrel. This is one of those plants that almost no beginner gardener talks about, but professional chefs know exactly how valuable it is. Because the moment you taste it, you understand why. Sorrel has a flavor that's hard to compare to anything else. Bright, sharp, almost electric. A natural lemon-like tang that cuts through dishes in a way most greens simply can't. That flavor comes from a compound called oxalic acid, the same thing that gives it that clean, sour edge. And in the kitchen, that makes it incredibly versatile. It shows up in sauces, soups, salads, and in classic French cuisine, sorrel sauce with salmon has been a staple for centuries. But here's what makes it even more interesting for a garden. Sorrel is a perennial. You plant it once, and it keeps coming back, year after year, bigger, stronger, more productive. Now, most people assume something this flavorful must need perfect conditions, full sun, careful attention, constant maintenance. But the reality is almost the opposite. Sorrel actually prefers shade. In full sun, especially in hotter weather, it gets stressed and starts to bolt, just like spinach. But in partial shade, something subtle but important happens. The plant grows more slowly, which means it produces that sharp oxalic acid at a lower rate. And the result? Leaves that are more tender, more balanced, and often better tasting. In other words, shade doesn't just help it survive, it improves the quality. Now, from a growing standpoint, it's almost effortless. Harvest the outer leaves, and the plant keeps producing from the center. It's drought-tolerant once established, cold-hardy, and animals like deer tend to leave it alone. You don't have to fight for it. You don't have to babysit it. It just keeps going. And over time, what you end up with is a reliable, low-maintenance plant that delivers a flavor most people have never experienced from their own garden, which is why chefs value it and why almost nobody else is growing it. Number 8. Hostas. And this is where things take a turn most people don't see coming. Because if you've ever walked through a shaded yard or done any kind of landscaping, you've probably seen hostas everywhere. Big, leafy, ornamental plants used for borders, decorative beds, low-maintenance greenery. Most people plant them and never think about them again. But here's the part that surprises almost everyone. Hostas are edible. Not just technically edible, they're actually eaten as a seasonal vegetable in parts of Japan. The young shoots, called uroi, are harvested in early spring, right as they're pushing up through the soil, before the leaves fully open. At that stage, they're tender, crisp, and mild in flavor, somewhere between asparagus and a very delicate green bean. They can be boiled, sautéed, grilled, added to soups, and in the right context, they're considered a delicacy. Now think about that for a second. A plant that millions of people already have growing in their yard, producing food every single year, and most of them have no idea. That's what makes this one so powerful, because you might not even need to plant anything new. You might already be sitting on a perennial food source without realizing it. And when it comes to shade, hostas are about as tolerant as it gets. Deep shade, partial shade, under trees, along fences. They don't just survive, they thrive. They're incredibly resilient, hard to kill, and once established, they come back stronger every season. Now, there are a few things to keep in mind. If you're planning to eat them, make sure your plants haven't been treated with pesticides or chemicals, and always cook them. Raw hostas can cause mild digestive irritation. But beyond that, there's almost no barrier to entry. Some varieties even produce thicker, more upright shoots, like Sum and Substance or Elegance, which are often preferred for harvesting. So what you end up with is something most people overlook completely. A zero-cost crop, already growing, already adapted to shade, already coming back every year, and quietly producing food in a space most people only think of as decorative. Number 9, wasabi. And this is where most people's perception completely breaks. Because when you hear wasabi, you probably think of that bright green paste sitting next to sushi. Sharp, spicy, almost overpowering. But here's the truth that surprises almost everyone. What you've been eating probably isn't real wasabi. In fact, up to 99% of the wasabi served in restaurants is actually a mix of horseradish, mustard, and green food coloring. Real wasabi? That's something entirely different. Fresh wasabi rhizomes can sell for $70, even over $100 per pound. It's one of the most expensive crops on Earth. And the reason isn't hype, it's difficulty. Because wasabi is extremely specific about where it grows. In the wild, it's found along cool mountain streams in Japan, under dense forest canopy, where temperatures stay between about 45 and 70 degrees, humidity is high, and water is constantly moving, or the soil is perfectly moist and well-drained. Too much sun? It dies. Too much heat? It dies. Poor drainage? It dies. Which is exactly why almost nobody grows it successfully. But here's the opportunity hidden inside that difficulty. If you happen to have a shaded, cool, consistently moist area, especially one protected from intense heat, you might already have the closest thing to a natural wasabi environment. And that's where things get interesting. Because while it takes patience, typically 18 months to 2 years to produce a harvestable rhizome, you're not waiting with nothing in return. The leaves and stems are edible. You can harvest along the way. And when the time finally comes, you're holding something almost nobody gets to experience fresh. Because here's the detail that changes everything. The flavor compounds in real wasabi are incredibly volatile. Once it's grated, they start breaking down within minutes, which means the true flavor, the complex aromatic heat that rises through your nose instead of just burning your tongue, almost never exists outside of where it's grown. So when you grow it yourself, you're not just producing a rare crop, you're unlocking an experience that most people, no matter how many times they've eaten sushi, have never actually had. And all of it depends on shade. Number 10. Cardamom. Most people know it as a spice, a small jar on a shelf, something you use occasionally in tea, desserts, or certain dishes. Expensive, but in small amounts, so you don't think much about it. But step back for a second, because cardamom isn't just a spice. It's one of the most valuable spices on earth by weight, right up there with saffron and vanilla. And unlike most spices people imagine growing in open, sun-soaked fields, cardamom comes from the shade. In the wild, it grows along the forest floors of southern India and Sri Lanka, under dense tropical canopies where sunlight barely reaches the ground. It evolved in near constant shade, so when people try to grow it in full sun, it struggles. Leaves scorch, growth slows, production drops. But move it into deep, humid shade with rich soil and consistent moisture, and it starts behaving the way it was designed to. Now here's where things get interesting long-term. Cardamom is a perennial. Once established, a single plant can continue producing pods for years, sometimes up to a decade. And those pods, they're harvested by hand, which is one of the main reasons high-quality cardamom is so expensive. It's not just the plant, it's the labor behind it. Now layer on the history, because this isn't some modern trend. Cardamom has been traded as a luxury good for thousands of years. It was used in ancient Egypt, traded across empires, carried through trade routes that connected entire civilizations. At one point, it was valued alongside some of the most important commodities in the world. And even today, in many Middle Eastern cultures, cardamom isn't just a flavor, it's part of daily life. Ground into coffee, shared with guests, used as a symbol of hospitality. Now, from a growing standpoint, there's one more advantage. If you live in a warmer climate, you can grow it outdoors in a shaded spot year-round. If not, it adapts surprisingly well to containers. Keep it in a pot, move it indoors during colder months, and maintain that warm, humid environment it prefers. And what you end up with isn't just a productive plant. It's something that looks like a lush, tropical ornamental, tall, green, almost decorative, while quietly producing one of the most valuable spices in the world, all in the shade. Number 11. Groundnuts. And this might be the biggest surprise on the entire list, because despite how powerful this plant is, almost nobody is growing it. First, quick clarification. Groundnuts are not peanuts, completely different plant. Their scientific name is Apios americana, and they're native to North America, growing naturally in shaded, moist woodland areas. But what makes them truly interesting isn't just where they grow, it's how important they used to be. For thousands of years, indigenous communities relied on groundnuts as a staple food, not a side crop, not something occasional, a core part of their diet. And when early European settlers arrived and struggled to survive harsh winters, groundnuts are widely believed to have played a role in keeping them alive. That's how significant this plant was. Now let's talk about what it actually produces. Underground, it forms clusters of tubers, almost like a string of beads buried in the soil. And when you harvest them, the flavor lands somewhere between a potato and a chestnut. Rich, nutty, slightly sweet. But the real surprise is in the nutrition. Ground nuts contain roughly 3 times the protein of a regular potato. 3 times, which is incredibly rare for a root crop. And suddenly it stops being just interesting and starts looking like a serious food source. Now, above ground, the plant grows as a vine. It climbs, wraps around structures, fences, nearby plants, and it does all of this comfortably in partial to full shade. It doesn't need perfect conditions, it doesn't demand constant attention. In fact, it improves the soil as it grows. Like beans, it's a nitrogen fixer, pulling nitrogen from the air and adding it back into the soil, making the entire area more fertile over time. And once it's established, it becomes perennial. Year after year, the same plant produces more tubers as it expands underground. You can harvest them boiled, roasted, fried, mashed. Even the seeds, produced in small pods, are edible. And interestingly, the flavor often improves after the first frost. Now here's the strange part. Despite all of this history, all of this nutritional value, all of this adaptability, groundnuts are almost invisible in modern gardening. You won't find them in most nurseries, you won't see them in typical garden plans, which means if you do grow them, you're growing something genuinely rare, something with a story most people have never heard. And all it takes is a shaded corner, a bit of moisture, and something for the vines to climb. From there, it just keeps producing, quietly, year after year. Number 12, pawpaw. And this is the one that usually makes people stop and ask, wait, that's real? Because pawpaw doesn't taste like anything you'd expect from a tree growing in a temperate backyard. The flavor is often described the same way, like a banana crossed with a mango with a hint of vanilla custard. Soft, creamy, almost like pudding. So tropical that the first time most people try it, they assume it must have been imported from somewhere warm. But it wasn't. Pawpaw is actually the largest native fruit in North America. And here's the part that makes it even more unusual. You probably won't find one in a grocery store. Not because it isn't good, but because it doesn't last. Once ripe, pawpaws have a shelf life of just a few days. They bruise easily. They don't ship well, which makes large-scale commercial sales almost impossible. So unless you grow it yourself or happen to find it locally, you may never taste one. Now let's connect that back to shade, because this is where pawpaw becomes even more interesting. In the wild, pawpaw trees grow in the understory of forests, beneath larger trees, protected from direct sunlight. Young trees especially need shade to survive. Too much sun early on can stress them, even kill them. And while mature trees can handle more light, they still thrive in dappled shade, exactly the kind of environment most people overlook. Now, from a growing standpoint, pawpaw is surprisingly low maintenance. It's cold hardy, handling temperatures down to around -20 degrees Fahrenheit. It has very few serious pest problems. The leaves contain natural compounds that insects tend to avoid, which also means deer usually leave them alone. You're not constantly fighting to protect it. It just grows. Now here's where the story goes deeper. Pawpaw isn't new. It's ancient. Indigenous communities relied on it for thousands of years. Later, it showed up in some unexpected places in American history. George Washington reportedly enjoyed them, Thomas Jefferson grew them at Monticello, and during the Lewis and Clark expedition, when food supplies ran low, pawpaws helped keep them going. This fruit has been part of survival, exploration, and everyday life, and then, somehow, it almost disappeared from common awareness. Today, there are small communities of growers and enthusiasts trying to bring it back. Festivals, tastings, people traveling hours just for the chance to try one fresh. Because once you taste it, you understand why it matters. Now, if you're thinking about growing it, there's one key detail. Plant at least 2 trees. Pawpaws require cross-pollination to produce fruit. Give them a few years to establish, and what you'll have is something most people have never experienced. A tree producing one of the rarest, most unusual fruits on the continent, in the shade of your own backyard. So now I'm curious, which one of these surprised you the most? For most people, it's pawpaw, because once you realize something like that can grow in the shade, you never look at your yard the same way again. And if you made it this far, you're clearly serious about growing smarter, not harder. So if you want more ideas like this, unusual crops, hidden advantages, and ways to turn overlooked spaces into something incredibly productive, make sure you're subscribed because there's a lot more coming. That's it for this one, and if you start experimenting with any of these, you might be surprised how quickly that useless space becomes the most productive part of your garden. I'll see you in the next one.